Anyway, wow. All right, 1 Corinthians 3. This will be the shortest message you've ever heard me preach. Maybe. According to the grace of God which was given to me as a wise master builder, the Apostle Paul says, I have laid the foundation, and another builds on it. But let each one take heed. Let each one be careful how he builds on it. For no other foundation can anyone lay than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. And by the way, this little passage here in verses 10 through 15, it's Paul talking to the leaders in the city of Corinth. This is aimed at the leaders, but listen, as always in the Bible, we take it and say, hey, this applies to you and I as well. This applies to all of God's people, and we need to take it to heart, okay? It says, let each one take heed how he builds on it, verse 10. Okay, now verse 12. Now, if anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear. Because the day will declare it. Because it will be revealed by fire. Notice they capitalize the word day there because it's talking about the day of Jesus Christ. It's talking about the day of his return when he comes back. That time when the Lord is with his people, it's going to declare our work. That day will declare it. And the fire will test each one's work of which sort it is. Fire in the Bible is a symbol of judgment, passing under judgment. Okay, we're not going to be having literal fire hitting our earthly lives. It's talking about we're going to undergo judgment. Okay, it's going to be tested. Verse 14, if anyone's work which he has built on it endures, he will receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, he will suffer loss, but he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire. Here's a picture of a welder in a factory that looks a lot. It's kind of hard to see up there, but it's a factory that looks a lot like the factory that I worked at when I was 18 years old. When I had finished my first year at Purdue, needed a summer job, started welding railroad cars, okay? And so you wore this big helmet, you wore this heavy garment and leather and big thick leather gloves, and you were real protected, all right, because you're, having this stuff firing right before your eyes for 8 hours. And I could see in the background, in the picture I'm looking at, I could see the crane in the background. They had a crane that would run the length of the factory. And then there were smaller cranes that we used to move the stuff near us. But once we got our part of the train done, that big overhead crane came, lifted it up, took it over, and moved it to the next area. Well, anyway, I love to get overtime because in those days I was making $7.50 an hour, which in 1979 wasn't too bad. And when you got overtime, they'd give you time and a half, so you'd make like $12 an hour, and that was really good for 1979. I guess nowadays you're talking about like $25 an hour or something like that, probably $30 an hour. And man, whenever they said, hey, anybody want to stay after? You worked till 12:30 in the morning. Anybody want to stay longer? Man, when I was 18, I could stay for 8 more hours. I had all kinds of power on my side. And so one night, a guy came and he said, hey, I need you to weld this. You're going to take this, line this up, and then you're going to weld and weld and weld, and it's going to take you a long time. It's going to take you 45 minutes. So anyway, I did what I thought he told me to do. And got down there, and I started welding, and was just like this guy was for 45 minutes, just sitting there. And we had these things called meg welders, which you didn't have to keep putting a stick in it and starting over. And then when that one finished, you put another stick in. I did use those. But the meg welders were a machine that just kept pumping steel wire through your welding your welding, I forgot what they called it, but the little tool there, and it would just go, you could go for 4 hours. It would just keep cooking. It would just keep coming out. Well, I did that for like 30 to 45 minutes on this part they asked me to weld. And when I got done, I looked at it and I said, wow, good weld, Bob. Look at that beautiful weld. It was just a piece of art, you know. I was really happy with what I did. And unfortunately, as I came to find out to my dismay, I didn't line up. It was 2 chunky pieces of metal, and it was a little difficult to get it lined up just perfectly, and I was off just enough where it failed. It failed, even with that beautiful weld, because I didn't line it up right, it failed. Oh, man, I was beside myself. And then my father in the faith, who was a year older than me, or 3 years older than me, Jim, pastoring in Florida still, he was beside himself because one of the foremen grabbed him and said, take that weld apart. So he had to sit there for about an hour and basically melt what I had done, and then we were going to redo it afterwards. But anyway, when you get to chapter 3 and verse 10 here, we already looked at this. Paul told God's leaders and God's people, let each one take heed, let each one be careful how he builds. It doesn't say, it says that, we're all building for God, but it says how you do it. Because just as important as it is to do it, because they told me to do it, and I did it, and it looked beautiful, but it wasn't straight. The weld was basically perfect, but it wasn't, the metals were tilted or something. And so Paul tells us we need to take heed in our lives. Paul, one of the most hardworking Christians, says, take heed how you build. Yeah, I work hard, but I got to be careful how I'm working, okay? And so all of us have a role here on earth. We are building each other up spiritually. We're strengthening one another. We're doing God's kingdom work. We're teaching children. We're edifying and equipping adults. We're helping people learn how to share their faith. We're teaching people how to defend the truth of Christianity. We're doing all these things to you and for you and with you, and you're helping one another. And so God is telling us here, take heed, because just like on earth, Pastor Bob, they sent, in that factory, they sent by his work what's called quality control. Anybody ever heard that before in your life? Quality control, those of you who have worked in, yeah. I thought about you, Beth. I thought about you putting all those things together, and I bet you had quality control. Well, quality control comes by, and their hats, they have white hats. I wonder why they have white hats. Think about that. It has to be good. Anyway, they come through there, man, and man, they could sniff out a bad job 500 feet away. And you know what? Everybody listen to me. Just like we had to have quality control come and check our work in that factory and places you've worked, our lives are going to have heavenly quality control. And it's not for Sunday morning. We'll test what you've done on Sunday morning between 8 and noon. No. It's going to be every day and every hour and so on and so forth. It's heavenly quality control. And because this is Labor Day weekend, I thought, this would be a great message to encourage everybody and say, hey, listen, don't forget about this, because this will keep you on your toes. This will keep helping you to do an excellent job. All right? So this morning, what I want to do is to share with you 3 reasons why you should take heed. 3 reasons why you should be careful about your life that you are building here on earth for God. 3 reasons, okay, and very simple. Okay, the first one here is in verses 12 and 13, and it's because your work, your life, will be tested. Everybody's got to have the heavenly quality control. We must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. Okay? If anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear. He's saying, listen, regardless of what you use, I'm not so sure he's talking about good things to build with and awful things to build with here, though Paul does talk about those kind of things in other places. He's talking about, hey, I don't care what you're using. I don't care if you're a goldsmith, a silversmith. I don't care if you're somebody that's putting things together using straw and things like that. I don't care what you're doing in life. It's not so much what materials you're building with, though that's important in certain ways. He's saying, I'm concerned that you're doing a good job, no matter whether you're a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker. You know, if you're making golden things over here, or if you're making, things made out of straw over here, you ought to do a good job whether you're working with gold or silver. Okay? 2 Corinthians 5:10, Paul tells us this. We must all, hey, everybody listening, everybody looking up there, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone, or each one may receive the things done in the body, according to what he has done, or what she has done, whether good or bad. Yep, listen, if a Christian was just a waste of human flesh and the biggest loser on the globe, they're going to undergo the judgment seat of Christ. If a Christian was Billy Graham or whatever, you name it, he was the finest, hardest working, Paul is going to be at the judgment seat of Christ. Peter will be there. The apostles will be there. The prophets will be there. All must appear before the judgment seat of Christ so they can receive the things done in the body. So what I'm just saying this morning is, hey, listen, you've been working a long time from, let's keep up the good work. Let's keep up keep being generous. This summer it's been really tough financially here at the church, and some of the offerings have been very, very, very low. Oh my goodness. I mean, our bare bones is $3,500 a week to keep everything going. Some weeks we'd have $1,200. Some weeks we'd have $1,500. And that's the way it is sometimes. Sometimes people don't give like they should. But anyway, our work is going to be tested. That's number one. The second one is this. The quality of your work will become clear. Man, I don't even need to say this. We just talked about this for 10 minutes. If anyone builds on this foundation with gold, silver, and precious stones, wood, hay, straw, each one's work will become clear, for the day will declare it, the day of Christ. Our work will become crystal clear. There won't be any doubt about how we used our lives on this earth, whether we did it for the glory of God or whether we were selfish. And again, by the way, let me just say this. We're all selfish. I mean, that's just part of human nature. But I'm just saying that people that never overcame that, they just pretty much, even as Christians, they drew a circle around themselves, and that's all they cared about 24/7. I mean, listen, we're going to fight selfishness till the day we die. But I'm talking about Christians that never pray, never give, never witness, never serve, never do diddly. Their lives are just not, they're just not glorifying God. They're just not bringing honor and glory to Him. All right? And there's going to be a big, big price to pay. One time there was a loyal carpenter named John Smith. I'm going to call him John Smith. He's working for a very successful building contractor who called him into his office one day, and the building contractor said, John, I'm putting you in charge of the next house we build. I want you to order all the materials, and I want you to oversee the whole job from the ground up. So John the carpenter accepted this assignment with great enthusiasm and excitement. For 10 days before ground was broken at the building site, John studied the blueprints, checked every measurement, every specification. But suddenly he had a thought. If I'm really in charge, he said to himself, why couldn't I cut a few corners? Use less expensive materials, put the extra money in my pocket. Who would know the difference? Once the house is trimmed out and painted, it'll look great. So John began to execute his plans. He ordered second-grade lumber, but his reports indicated it was top grade. He ordered inexpensive concrete, put in cheap wiring, cut every corner he could. Yet he reported the purchase of much better materials. When the home was completed and fully painted, he asked the contractor to come and see it. John, said the contractor, what an awesome job you've done. You've been such a good and faithful carpenter all these years that I've decided to show my gratitude to you by giving you this house that you've built as a gift. And folks, if you and I ever descend to the point where we start thinking thoughts like, who will know the difference? I'm all by myself. Hey, are we ever all by ourselves? I'm all by myself. Who will know the difference? Who will know what I'm doing? Let me answer that question for you. I'll tell you who will know the difference. It's the one that spread his arms on a Roman cross and had nails driven through his wrists and through his feet. He'll know the difference. He'll know the difference. So I don't care if you're by yourself or with 50 people, we ought to live for God's honor and glory. I know we fail him, but man, we ought to be weeping giant tears when we do. That's number 2. So number 1, our work will be tested. Number 2, the quality of your work will become clear. And number 3, your boss will decide what counts and what doesn't. And I put the quote boss in quotes. Why? Because we're talking about Jesus. Okay, we just gave an illustration there of a boss. If anyone's work, verse 14, if anyone's work he has built on it endures. Think about this. That guy that built that house in the 1890s that Kelly and I saw, it's 2018 and it still looks marvelous. The rooms, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, it's just mind-boggling. The kitchens, the pots that they used, the copper pots are still hanging there in the kitchen. By the way, that place had an elevator as well that would take you from the 1st to the 4th floor. Had an elevator, had a giant electric freight elevator for their workers when they had to get food here and there. Regular, huge size, the place was mind-boggling. If anyone's work which he has built on it endures, he'll receive a reward. If anyone's work is burned, in other words, it undergoes the judgment of Jesus, and it gets burnt up, he or she will suffer loss. But he himself will be saved, yet so as through fire. Now notice 2 phrases here. I underline them. He will receive a reward, or he will suffer loss. We're talking about God's people. Okay? God's people will stand before Jesus and either be rewarded because Jesus was number 1 in their lives for the most part of their earthly existence, or on the other side of the coin, he will suffer loss. He'll start looking at all the things he could have had, all the rewards. Jesus might say, hey, I wanted you to have this, but I can't give it to you. And I wanted you to reign with me, but you forfeited that. And I would have given you this, and I would have given you that. Wow. There was a story told about a girls' basketball team that was in the last seconds of the game, and the girl is on the very end of the court, at the opposite end from the basket over there, and she takes the ball and she just cranks it like that, and it swishes 94 feet away. It goes right in. And the crowd goes absolutely nuts. They're going crazy, but not for very long, because suddenly they see this little guy with a black and white shirt running over there, blowing his whistle, going, psh, psh, psh. Why? Because her foot was that far out of bounds. When she stepped to throw, it was out of bounds. Listen, there were people in that crowd that were saying, did you see that shot? That wasn't a 3-point shot. That was a 4 or a 5 or a 6-point shot. That was unbelievable. But guess what? It didn't matter. What mattered was with the little guy. Listen, she could have made the shot from the top row in the balcony. She could have thrown it 200 feet and swished. And guess what? The result would have been the same. There's the big red X, okay? The result would have been the same. Why? Because it's what the boss decides, the ref decides what's going to count and what's not going to count. And you know what, folks? The ref always gets the final word. You can make a basket from the upper deck, and it still won't count. Jesus will have the last word. But Lord! Hey, you know what? The same thing's going to happen at the great white throne. Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name? Depart from me into everlasting fire. I never knew you. See, Jesus is going to have the last word, both at the judgment seat of unbelievers and at the judgment seat of believers. He's the boss. He's the ref. He's going to make the call, not you and I. What we do is we concentrate on what we're doing down here by His grace, and we're leaving the rest in God's hands, all right? I'm going to close with a story I've told you on several occasions, but I just couldn't find a better story, and I was sicker than a dog, and I didn't feel like finding a different story. One stormy night, many, many years ago, an elderly couple entered the lobby of a small hotel and asked for a room. The front desk clerk explained that because there were 3 conventions in town, the hotel was filled. But the clerk looked at this elderly couple that was standing there with their umbrellas and their raincoats dripping. He says, but I can't send a nice couple like you out into the rain at 1 o'clock in the morning. Would you be, by any chance, willing to sleep in my room? I'm going to be up working all night, and it's very small and not very nice. But would you be willing to sleep there? Be happy to do that for you. And the couple hesitated. No. But the clerk insisted. And so the next morning when the man got up, that same clerk was standing there with a smile on his face at the front desk. And the man went to pay his bill. And he said to the clerk, he said, you're the kind of manager who should be the boss of the best hotel in the United States. Maybe I'll build one for you one day. The clerk smiled, and he was amused by the older man's joke. But a few years later, the clerk received a letter from the elderly man, recalling that stormy night, and asked him to come to New York for a visit. A round-trip ticket was enclosed. When the clerk arrived, the man took him to the corner of 5th Avenue and 34th Street, where a magnificent new building, now this is a very old picture, if it was in full color, it would be even grander, but he takes him on the corner and he says to this guy, he says, that, young man, is the hotel I've just built for you to manage. And the clerk said, you must be joking. And he said, I'm not kidding one bit. Who are you? He said, my name is William Waldorf Astor. Have anybody ever heard of the Waldorf Astoria in New York? That's it right there, and it's still standing. The Waldorf Astoria. It was gorgeous when it was built, and it's still gorgeous to this very day, over 100 years later. Now, folks, one day, oh, and by the way, the young clerk who became his His manager of that hotel was named George C. Bolt. George C. Bolt. Now, folks, one day there are going to be many, many people who have been faithful to the Lord, who, when Jesus begins to show them the scope of their rewards and all their responsibilities in the kingdom, they are going to say, you must be joking. Just like George Bolt did. This is the hotel I built for you to manage. You've got to be kidding. You've got to be joking. People are going to stand in Jesus' presence, and he's going to say, because you are faithful in a little, I've got plans for you and rewards beyond your comprehension. And people are going to be just like this. They're going to say, you've got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding. But no, he's not kidding. Jesus said, whoever obeys me, him my Father will honor. Do you ever get honored by God? I want to be honored by God. And listen, this past week, one of our missionaries, Ed Coffey, lost his 20-year-old son, another family member, killed in Liberia. He died in an accident. And I wrote Brother Ed this week, and I wrote him a letter and his wife and shared my heart with them. And then I put at the end, it will be worth it all when we see Jesus. Life trials will seem so small when we see Christ. One glimpse of his dear face, all sorrow will erase. So bravely run the race till we see Christ. And folks, it will be worth it all. We might say, you must be joking, Lord, and you're going to say, no, it's all yours. I built this for you. All right, what do we take home, everybody? Very simply. 1 minute or 2 minutes and we'll go home. If the Lord stepped in here right now, he came in the doors, and he started pointing at all of us, and he said, I'm going to conduct a review of your life at 1 o'clock. Would you be ready? Would you try to run? Or would you say, you know what, I think I'm ready. I think I'm good. That's the only application I have for you. If he was to bring your life under review at 1 o'clock today, would you be ready? Let's bow our heads for prayer. And let's see, Jeff, could you come up and close us in prayer? Okay, I'm going to pray and then I'm going to have you close us. Come on up. With our heads bowed and eyes closed, think. How have you been building, everybody? How have you been doing? How have you been living and serving and praying and giving and all the things God calls us to do? How have you been doing? Is he pleased, not just with one area or two areas, is he pleased with your life? Is he pleased with every area? Your words, your thoughts, your deeds? Take heed how you build. Be careful. Be careful. Be careful. Because the day will declare it. Your work will become clear. All right, Jeff, would you close us in prayer, please?
God, we come before you in the name of our Savior, your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, I want to thank you for the many blessings that you give us. You've given us life, the food that we eat, our children, our jobs, all the good times that we've had throughout our life. Lord, what a good God you are to us. When I think about that, Lord, it makes me feel sad because I've given you so little. Lord, I pray that the Holy Spirit would impress upon our hearts and minds that we need to do more. We're unfaithful. Lord, help us to be faithful. Help us to be consistent, to be obedient. Convict our hearts, Lord. Lord, I do thank you for Pastor Bob. Thank you for his consistency and the messages that he brings to us each week. And Lord, I ask that you would heal him and bless him. Lord, I thank you for all the people that work so hard in this church. Help us to continue, again, to be consistent, to be obedient, to be faithful. Lord, convict our hearts about giving, not just in service, but also financially. Help us to be faithful in tithing and giving to missions. Lord, I confess I'm not always consistent as I should be. Help us to be consistent, be faithful. Convict our hearts, Lord. Lord, I pray that when we walk out of this building, we will not forget what we've heard. Bring it to our minds. Help us to remember it. But our hearts not just be convicted now, at this moment, but throughout the week. Lord, I thank you for this church and for what it means to so many people, but most of all, Lord, I thank you for what you've done for us, what you've done for this church, and how you've blessed us. Lord, be with us this week as we leave and go through our weeks and work and we're in front of other people. Help us, Lord, be faithful to you. In Jesus' name, and for your sake I pray. Amen.